You have the cutest quilt. You've already used Kimberbell's block by block method to quilt it as you went along, and you've sewn your quilt top together, so now it's time to add those borders. Can you quilt your borders in the hoop too? You sure can. And today I'm going to show you how easy it is to do. You're going to find step-by-step instructions in any of our background quilting downloads, but as you'll see today, it's one of the simplest things you can do. The method I'm about to show you is for the block by block quilting method we use at Kimberbell. We use this method often when the quilt project itself has a lot of applique blocks to it. If you're interested in learning more about the traditional quilting that we have when you're making a quilt sandwich and then you quilt through all 3 layers together, be sure to check out my videos on how to use Kimberbell's clear blue tiles for that type of quilting. But let's go ahead and get back to this fun block by block method for now. You'll find step-by-step instructions as well as cutting charts in the download for any Kimberbell background quilting file for the borders. It's just a few pages long, so it'll be easy to spot it. Notice in the download that you're going to have a variety of quilting widths and lengths to choose from. The width of the design is indicated by the first number. As you can see, you can choose between the finished sizes of 1 inch, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 inch widths. For example, since I'm ready to do my background quilting on the inner border of the cup of cherry quilt, I know that I'm going to cut my fabric at 1.5 inches the width, and therefore I'm going to choose the 1 inch option. My outer border is cut at 4.5 inch width. So when it comes time to do that one, I'm going to choose the 4 inch width file option because of course you want to account for those seam allowances. But as you can see, even within the width options are also length options. Well, that's the second number you're going to find, and that actually indicates the length of your hoop. You'll see them in the most common hoop sizes for the lengths of the hoops. That is the 7 inch, the 10, the 12 inch, and 14 inch lengths. It's now easy to know which file to choose. Here are a couple of examples. If I'm using a 5x7 hoop and I want to quilt my outer border, I'm going to choose the 4x7 inch file name. Remember, 4 inches is the width of my fabric and 7 inches is the length of my hoop. Here's another example. Maybe you have an 8x12 inch hoop. When you go to do your outer border, you're actually going to choose the 4x12 inch file. Why? Well, you're simply going to have less hoopings, right? You're going to be able to quilt your borders with the largest length of hoop you have. But here's the good news about how Kimberbell's background quilting files are digitized, that no matter what size hoop you have, from the smallest to even one of the largest, you'll never be able to tell which size of hoop you used. Since all the designs are on the same scale, and the method I'm about to show you works for all borders, your results are going to look so professional and very beautiful too. Your download is also going to include the sizes to cut your batting. You can refer to the handy chart in your download or simply cut out the batting larger than the placement line. Either way works because at one point you're going to be cutting the batting down to size to eliminate it from being in your seams. So let's go ahead and get started. First, measure the length of your quilt to find what size to cut your border. Since I'm going to show you this outer border on Kimberbell's cup of cherry quilt, I'm going to cut my width at 4.5 inches, and the length will be the length of my quilt plus another inch or 2. When quilting long borders, we suggest giving yourself a little wiggle room in case it shrinks up. If it was a small border or a block, that really isn't necessary. But if you've already cut to the exact size, it's okay, no worries. It will all work out, I promise. After you've cut your length, I'd like to adhere Kimberbell's fusible backing behind the fabric just to create a little extra structure and reduce any puckering. Next, hoop lightweight cutaway stabilizer in the hoop. For our demonstration today, I'm going to use my 6x10 hoop. Notice at the top of these instructions are titles that say first hooping and additional hoopings. This will be important a little bit later. In the meantime, let's go ahead and start with that first hooping. It's time to stitch the batting placement line. Then place a piece of Kimberbell's project batting, making sure to completely cover the placement line. Remember, this is oversized, so you can cut it according to the chart, or simply just make sure that your batting is larger. Tape it in a few places to prevent it from shifting, and then stitch the batting tack-down line. Remove the tape and trim the batting close to the stitch line. Next, stitch the fabric placement line. Place some rolled pieces of tape with the sticky side out above and below the batting. Place your border fabric just above the top edge of the batting. Oh, maybe about 1/4 inch is all that is needed. And align the side edges exactly where the placement line is. The extra fabric is going to hang off the bottom of your hoop. Smooth the fabric over the rolled tape and then stitch the fabric basting stitch. This stitch will be sewn just along the long sides and will be sewn into the seam, so therefore there's no need to remove it later. Now, change your thread to the color you wish for your quilting and stitch that darling border design. That's it! You're done with your first hooping. At this point, you're going to remove the project from the hoop and trim the excess stabilizer. Be sure not to trim the fabric or the batting. Next, take your completed border to a flat surface and fold it with the right sides together with the batting tack-down line on the fold. Hoop a second piece of stabilizer and stitch the batting placement line. Place the batting over the area and tape in place. Stitch the batting tack-down line. Remove the tape and trim the batting close to the stitch line. Remember, this step prevents the batting from being inside the length of your seams. Next, stitch the fabric placement line. Place rolled pieces of tape with the sticky side out above and below the batting. Place the folded border fabric right side up, aligning the fold with the top of the batting. The extra fabric, again, is just going to hang off the bottom of your hoop. Unfold the border and press it into the tape, and then smooth the remaining border and press that into the bottom portion of the tape. Stitch the fabric basting stitch, and this stitch again is going to be sewn into your seam, so don't worry about taking it out later. Then change your thread color and stitch the border quilting stitch. You're done! You'll continue this process listed under additional hoopings until the entire process of quilting is done. Once finished, cut your border to the length and sew to the sides of your quilt with a 1/4 inch seam. Now, how easy and fun was that?